and welcome to my book review. Today I'm gonna review A Poiseners Tale by Captain Kant. And what really drew attention to this book for me is, first of all, the beautiful cover that we have and the themes of the skull, the tarot cards, the poison itself, and the beautiful flowers. And second of all, it's the setting that we're playing in, because it is on Rome, specifically Sicily, in 1665, and it's about a poisoner who creates poisons for women who are in bad relationships or have a really bad situation going on, and it's mostly used for killing men. First of all, we start with a prologue, and there it already seems to spoiler the end, where she talks about that she's gonna be hanged in a second, and how she said that all the history that she made throughout this entire lifespan of her making the potions and saving those women will be false and wronged by men, because they wrote it down without them realizing that they're flesh and blood and what they did it for. And she's referred to the poisoner of Palermo. I can't pronounce the city name. And it's really intriguing because she confirms that her fate to create those poisons was never different, and she couldn't imagine it to be otherwise, and that what happened had to be because it's dangerous in general. So we see that she's a really focused character, and she never had a doubt to be something else, which will also be reflected later, and which is really interesting that she has or is not going to be hanged alone, because there are a few other people which are not specifically interesting for us in the first few chapters that I'm going to review. And this video is going to be 1 and 2. And she's really said more about the fact that the truths that are going to be there in history, especially because of men, more than the death itself. But it's not really written that she's dead right now, so I hope that she's alive, but depending on the reality that is in the book, I really don't think so. So, in chapter 1 we meet her impression of her life and her character a little bit more. So we start off with the information that she lives in a wealthy merchant family and is soon to be married off to a rich man. And she embroids and has to follow the rule. She learns Latin. She's really trained to be a wife. And we see her as the submissive, controlled, and calm character. And then she proceeds to tell that she has problems to sleep. And the thing that helps her is plants and how they grow. They have, first of all, a merchant garden and a private garden in there. And what she finds fascinating is how wild and unpredictable the plants grow, which is really interesting and shows that she does not enjoy this kind of life and is missing the freedom that she has, which is really important to her and also important later in the second chapter. And then she notices that always when she's out at night, her mother is away when everybody is supposed to be sleeping, and it's kind of suspicious. And she sees her mother giving vials of water or mixtures or tinctures to other women, and soon after that they are widows. So she doesn't like that exactly, but never really thought about it more, because she was afraid to know the knowledge. The first few times or years she kept asking, what is going on, what are you doing, but she was always shooed away. And that led to her to ignore that. And then one evening, when her mother comes to her room and wants to tell her what it is and what is going on, she has a really uneasy feeling. She doesn't want that, and she starts to doubt herself if it's really worth to know the knowledge. And she starts to regret wanting that. And her mother is like, you've been asking for this for a long time. This is important. And we help with that, and I want you to show it. And she doesn't really answer if she wants that or not, because she really feels uncomfortable. And then she has a vision, and she sees her own bare feet in blood. And then it springs back to her normal clothes. They're really rich and have a good quality and all, and everything is clean in there. So she's shocked, and her mother immediately noticed that. And then the mother she's not worried, but she's intrigued in her daughter's ability, and she tells her that it's always been like that since she was born, which is important to notice. And the daughter, the main character, lies about the vision and immediately regrets it because she feels so uncomfortable with all of that. And really, she feels dirty and she needs to say that because she also thinks that it's dangerous what she sees and what her mother is doing. And her mother really tries to connect her and to convince her to do that with her, to make her enthusiastic about that. And the daughter really doesn't like that. And we see the sort of disgust and fear in her prescriptions that she gives us from her perspective, which is also really interesting that we have her as the narrator and later in older or wiser version as a metaphorical narrator in the book. And there it's always emphasized that the fate that she meets always had to be like that, and she wonders if the day would have been different in her life, especially if she would have said no, but she's really unsure and never really thought it that way. She always wondered about that, but she was quite sure that it wouldn't be really like that, and has heavily emphasized that it wouldn't go any other way, even though that she wondered about that. And in the chapter we see a kind of darker version of her mother, because her mother is like, it's it's good what we do, and it's scary and it's dangerous, but it's what we need to do. She doesn't really go into detail, and I think it's because she thinks it's an unsafe place to talk about that, and she sees her daughter uncomfortable, not really liking the situation, and especially with the vision, because we also get told that the mother doesn't believe the daughter after she lied about that. And so we see that they disconnect at that moment, even though it's a really important moment for her life. And that is where her interest changed. So the chapter is quite short, but we get a heavy impression of, first of all, the male character. Well, her as being a daughter, being soon married off, and her mother revealing that big secret that she doesn't really know if she wants to know it anymore. Well, she's questioning herself like, is it worth it? Is it not? Because she also quotes that you're doing something bad. So she really is not a fan of that, and that is important, especially for the second chapter. In the second chapter, we start off with the daughter, or the female main character in the book, to be woken up in the middle of the night, and her mother is really caring about her. She's like, sweetie, we have to go, I have to show you, I have to tell you. And they sneak to the church. She only realizes that when they arrive, because the mother doesn't really tell her where they go, what they're doing, and what we also know in that moment while they are going there, or like quietly trying to get there, is that they are quite religious. They always go to the church, help them, financially, with making herbs against toothaches, etc. And they help out there, try and give them chances to make money. So we see that they're really close to the church. She is really surprised when they arrive in the middle of the night at the church. They're like scheming around, and there is a hooded woman, and the mother scratches on the church door, and they are let in. And the main character herself is really close to the people in the church, especially to the nuns. And when they're inside, we meet Sister Clara, who is a really big figure for her, and she's really surprised to see her in all of that. Because as we know from the first chapter, she's not really big of a fan to that particular thing. And she is really, well, shocked. Describes it also quite well. About her being also in that situation or agreeing to that, helping them, because she is here represented, well, in the mind of our main character, as a helper who leads them to the room. And then we proceed to meet another woman, that is Felicia, if I say the name right, and that is the assistant of her mother. She was always close with that assistant, and she's really disappointed well, I would say she's also hurt, because the moment she sees that it's Felicia, and she was always close to Felicia, she feels betrayed, because she knew that before her, and she wasn't really told about that, and they were close. She told her a lot of things. That's like, they were like a family, you could say that, you know, that Alicia, even though she was, well, you could say a servant, was also quite important in her life, which we can take from that. And then they proceed to go to the cloister. There's like the church and the cloister are next to each other, and there's also a garden, which is important. And they start to bring a potion. And first of all, when they start doing that, she's really distant. She is sick. She doesn't like it. She describes it as if the devil is in the room itself. There are demons, because she's unfamiliar with that sense of what they're doing, and she doesn't quite follow her mother's lead. In that same time, her mother is trying to convince her to accept what they're doing and help her, because she is like, we're doing something good, but it's dangerous and it's our fate. It's been giving from grandmother to mother to daughter all the time. And that's when we see how she sees her mother in the first place before all of that started. And she described her as submissive, the example of a woman back then, knowing her place. And all they do in church is because her husband allowed that, or her father, when we go from the main character perspective. And she never saw her mother as rebellious, which is important, because in the moment she helps to kill those men and to free the woman by that, she sees her mother being rebellious, which is what also she wants. She also wants to be rebellious, to be free, because as we know, and the mother also heavily emphasizes, she should know the feeling, because she is soon to be married off with all the lessons, Latin, behavior, all sewing. She's like all is going to lead to the fact that she's going to be married off, and not her own character, and even less than she was before. And as we know, especially with the fact that she likes the wild flowers, or how they grow wildly and not everything being controlled, is that we see also her desire into being free. And something breaks, something tiny breaks in that moment of perception, where she sees her mother being different, being the woman that she wants to be, well, in the sense of the freedom that she's representing in that moment. Which contradicts that they have to do it at night, which is also a big point that I noticed while reading, that she thinks it's really bad what they're doing, because while they're having their freedom, they have to do it secretly, and they harm someone, they kill someone with those potions. It's poison. They make poisons, and her mother tells her that directly. then they start making those potions, and something inside of her is like, well, I don't like it. But she demonizes it. She calls it the devil's work. But something inside of her is somewhat interested in that. Well, she starts to engage with it real fast. And she seems to show interest, not in the sort that she's enjoying it, but she says that it brings back memories as if she knows all of that. And this is quite interesting because, as we know, it's been giving from mother to daughter, all generations, from woman to woman, that she also sees a break in the perspective of her grandmother, who she didn't know for a long time, and she died when she was quite young. So she doesn't really know what to think, but she knows that she was great with herbs. That was like the thing of their family. And she sees that family wasn't all too great, that it wasn't quite good what's happening there. Well, in her perspective, it wasn't good. But as soon as she starts to make those potions, she's like, let me do that, let me help. And all this time, she also wonders why Felicia didn't told her, because she felt out of place, disconnected, even more than in the first chapter, where her mother bombarded her with that, and she was uncomfortable. And we also see that when they end the potion, which is a real roller coaster of emotions for her, she seems to start liking it, then not again, then she makes the whole potion nearly herself. Only the start was taken by Felicia and her mother, and she steps closer to it, helps with it, and that was like the potion for the night. And the mother brings out, or lets her bring out, a book, and that was from her grandmother, and there are listed all the women and that she helped and what she did for them, what kind of potions she gave. And we see a critique from the female characters, main character, and we see critique from the female male characters' perspective, because she finds it dangerous that all that is written down is what if somebody finds it, which is a valid critique. But then her mother comes with a more moral reason for that, where she says nobody's gonna remember them, and the only fair thing to do is write their lives down so they are somewhat acknowledged, at least on this paper. What really shifts her concept of what they're doing, well, somewhat. It shifts it somewhat more towards being maybe I don't completely hate it. And she learns that her grandmother started it, and she is really confused, and they go back and she keeps thinking about it, which is also, we still see that she isn't comfortable with that, but something intrigued her. She was really curious, and she was always afraid that the other noticed and what was going to happen, and she was really alarmed. She, over the course of the chapter 1 and 2 and the other chapters in the beginning, we see her asking, it's dangerous, why you do this? And then after some time, those questions go back, and she starts asking, why are we doing it like this? And how are we doing that? What do we need? So she starts to see more of the process that's going on and what it does. And it shifts quite fast. Well, the critique is still there in chapter 2, but through the middle it changes somewhat. And what is also important to notice with all of that going on is that the power arrangements that they have in the relationship with her mother changes, because there's one key thing happening while making those potions, and that is that she can hear the potions creating or going together and when it's ready. So she discovers that she has in some point more power than her mother, because at the same time that she told her mother, okay, the potion is ready, her mother nodded questionably. She was like, how do you know? And a few ingredients before that, she asked her mother, can you hear that? And she clearly heard clicking and, well, a lot of other sounds that were focused and coming from the potion, and they were intensified the longer they brewed the potion, and she knew exactly when it was ready, which is a new step to the relationship between the mother and the daughter. We briefly got information before, because before we had it, the mother is above her. She is submissive as to the end of the world, and we know she was a perfect example. So she was above her, not only in the way that she's her parent and she has authority, but also her behavior, that she was better, she was the thing that she not looked up to, but knew how to be. And we see her in that secret, in that little freedom that they have or feel like having, this wild feeling, this experience that she starts to have. She has something that her mother hasn't, and that is the power to know when the potion is ready. She can hear the potion. And when she asked her mother, can you hear it? The mother said, no, only you can hear that. Which is important to notice, that the mother acknowledged that power that she has and that secret freedom. And that's an important theme that we have here, that all the rules and that submissiveness that is asked, and that they can't escape from the abuse, which is why they make the potions in the first place, for other women to save themselves, that this is really her field in some way, that she starts to feel connecting to it so fast. And as I hope I mentioned before in this video, I am only going to review first of all chapter 1 and 2, because I want to see, well, the feeling first of all, well, how the book is going to be, and have a few theories, I might call it, about what is going to happen and how it's going to shift, which is also something that I feel like, because the book is cut in 3 parts, there's like part 1, part 2, and part 3, and in those parts I have a lot of chapters, that I think that the story is evolving fast from mother and daughter to doing it on her own, which is something, well, I haven't read the full book yet. That's important to mention. I have read the first 4 chapters, and I find the dynamic quite interesting between those two, because it shifts real fast from her discovering that ability to the breaking of the perception that she had of her mother. And what I think is going to happen is that this dynamic is going to fall real fast. Well, first of all, it will be stable in the way that she is still an apprentice, which is also called out before by the female main character herself, where she says, I'm just like a servant, her the poisoner and me the apprentice. Where she sees it on herself that she has a lot to learn. And by that, I think that she wants that, even though she feels uncomfortable. Not because she initially likes it, but because there's something, especially because of the vision and the power, the ability that she has or knows of right now, makes her feel belonging to something. And as a lot was going on in time back then, but not a lot for the women, is that she feels free. We could say, like the plants that she used to see when she couldn't sleep. So she sort of sees herself in that potion, in that poison that helps others. And her brain is starting to see that connection. And I think that, first of all, the course it's being bad is gonna stay a while, because the idea of killing somebody is, of course, a harsh idea. It's not optimal for somebody to see that as his freedom. But I think it's important to say that she already starts adapting somewhat to that idea. And that is what makes her so unique as a person, especially in that time and in that family, that they have the abilities, they have the knowledge to do that. And of course, the friends, where another important point is Sister Clara, the nun, that she's really good with. She was always nice to her. And we see that she starts to see more or less an opportunity in that, more than she did in this first chapter. But I think that she, first of all, has a practical idea of what she's doing and trying to push the feeling aside, because as we know, and it is mentioned in the book, she demonizes it. She calls it the demon as being in the room while they're doing that. She sees him in the shadows because she's afraid. And I think that with intensifying that job and actually starting to bond with her mother over that, and that the dynamic in the relationship is going to change again, because they're connecting from the disconnect they had in chapter 1. So I think it's important to say that all of this is gonna change her in a good way. So that was it for me today. And I hope you find it somewhat interesting in here. And if you want to have more or find something else, another book, it's important to say that I only recommend or read the books that I have at home, because I don't have that much place. Because there's all the books that I have and all the place for my books. Because my actual place where I store my books, it's all of school books. And books I want to read, but really, really in the future, because they are more like in last option, because they are more like biographies, and that's not really my type of reading. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to make another video sooner or later, hopefully sooner. But comment what you think, and bye.